In order to compare two related or dependent samples whose distributions are non-normal, we will be using a paired samples sign test. We will be using data that describes the sales revenue of 6 sales associates, with data taken from each associate before and after a sales training program. The data set has been uploaded to our project and can be viewed or edited in the Data Sources panel. There are 6 rows of sales data, one for each associate with a before measurement and an after measurement. To use the test, navigate to the Analyze section of the DMAIC menu, and under the Non-Parametric submenu, you will find the Paired Samples Sign Test. We see that the first step of the Paired Sample Sign Test accepts a single data variable that must be numeric. Note that there is no option to provide summary data instead of a data variable because non-parametric tests can only be run on the actual sample data. In this example, we will be testing for an increase in new client revenue after the seminar. In other words, we will be testing whether the median difference of the before minus after sales is less than 0. To add data, navigate to the before data and drag it to the data variable dropdown. This will be our first sample. After providing the first sample variable, we are prompted to attach either one more sample variable, which must be numeric, or a grouping variable, which can be numeric, text, or date time. We will continue by dragging the after variable onto the data variable dropdown. Notice that the grouping variable dropdown has disappeared, indicating that the grouping variable is only valid with one associated data variable. We will discuss grouping later in this video. After providing the 2 sample variables, the tool will prompt us with a series of study options. The alternative hypothesis should state our concern, in this case, that the sales increased after the training. So our hypothesized median difference of the before minus after is less than 0. Select less than for the alternative hypothesis. We then have an option of changing our significance level from its default value of 0.05. We will change it to 0.1, meaning that if the p-value from the test is smaller than 0.1, we will reject the null hypothesis and conclude that the seminar helped increase sales. Lastly, we specify the claimed or hypothesized median difference that we're comparing the observed paired samples median difference against. In our case, because we would like to compare against any increase in sales post-training, we can leave our hypothesized median difference at the default value of 0. Once we are done specifying all of our study options, the Continue button becomes active. We can click the Continue button to begin our calculations. Once the calculations are complete, you will be presented with a sample summary of the results, the hypothesis test results, and most importantly, the test conclusion. In this case, we can conclude that the median difference in before minus after sales is not less than 0 because the p-value of the test is greater than the specified significance level. In other words, there is not enough evidence at the 10% level to show that the training program was effective. You can modify the test setup by visiting the Test Setup dropdown. Additionally, assumptions were made concerning your data in order to run the hypothesis test. These assumptions and their validations can be viewed in the Assumptions dropdown. If we wish to use the grouping variable option, our data must be formatted as shown here, with all of the sales revenue in a single column of data. Additionally, we must have a second column with the grouping data, shown here, the sample label of each measurement as before or after. A valid grouping variable for a paired sample sign test must only have 2 unique values, assigning each row of your data to one of the 2 groups. For this reason, if using grouping variable, you must be the same size as your single data variable. To use this format, we must first drag off the 2 attached variables to restart the study. Then we can navigate to the sales data variable and drag it onto the data variable dropdown. In the next step, we will continue by dragging the grouping period variable onto the group variable dropdown. Note that the group listed first in the grouping column is considered the first sample. That is, it is the same as dragging that variable onto the study first. This concludes our tutorial. You can find more tutorials for tools in EngineRoom by going to www.moresteam.com/help/EngineRoom.